Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to share how to make another fun autumn craft with you, wax melts. These are small chunks of fragranced wax that you put in a wax warmer, and they fill the air with a nice scent. I love all the fall type scents, so I'm really going to enjoy these, and I hope you will too if you decide to make some. Making wax melts is similar to making candles, but they're easier in some ways because you don't have to worry about so many things like choosing the right wick and the right size. Also, because there is no wick or flame, there aren't the same possible fire hazards to worry about. I'm going to be making my wax melts in silicone molds, individual ones. So I've got this one. You can see how big they are. They're not real big. They're just little pumpkins. And then I also have a similar mold that someone gave me. This one's not silicone exactly, but it is sort of flexible. So I've never used this for wax melts, but I think it'll work because the wax is hard and it should be able to just kind of pop out like that. These are little, what do you call them? Jack-o'-lanterns. And then you can also use those little clamshell molds that are sold, like wax is sold in at stores, or something like this. This is just sold as mini cupcakes, like fancy ones. And you can see they're pretty deep, but they're just kind of like this. So you could use something like this, or you could use just a regular mini cupcake mold that's silicone. Any type of little silicone type mold like this will work, or the ones that are made for wax melts. So I'm going to be using this wax today. It is a coconut wax, and it's in a slab. As you can see, this is a 10-pound slab. The whole thing doesn't really fit in the camera as well, but I'm going to have to cut it up. But you can also buy wax that's in flakes that's already cut up. So I'm going to cut some of this up, and we'll then start with the weighing it out process. So to cut it, I'm literally just putting it on a little cutting board. And I have this cutter that's usually used for soaps, but it works for this. And this wax isn't super hard, so it's relatively easy to cut like that, and then it just kind of crumbles. So I'm just gonna cut some, and I'm making 3 batches of wax melts today in 3 different scents, so I'm gonna cut a bit of this, and then I will come back once it's cut and ready to be weighed. Alright, so I put all the wax into this bowl here, which isn't a big bowl, but it's bigger. And then I took this little bit smaller bowl, and I weighed it out on my scale. For each batch, I'm only going to be using about a ½ pound of wax. So I just tared out the bowl on the scale, and then weighed out some of the wax and put it in there till it was about a ½ pound, which is 8 ounces. And then I just take this wax, and let me move the scale, and I have this pouring pitcher, and I've got those testers in there that are unscented because I'm just going to remelt them. And so then I'm just adding this into there. You can also melt your wax using a specific, you can use a specific one like this that's made for candles, or you can use something like a Pyrex measuring cup with a little spout that'll make it easier to pour the wax as well. But once you use something, anything for making candles like this, or wax melts in this case, it needs to be dedicated solely to wax. So if you use a Pyrex, you can't then later on use it for food because of the fragrance and stuff we're going to be adding into this is not food safe. Now it's time to melt the wax. This is done in a double boiler system, much like the ancestor candles I made in a previous video. So, just like in that video, I'm just taking my thing of wax, putting it in the water, which there's just a couple inches of water in the bottom of this pot, and I've got it on medium heat. You want the water in here to be like simmering, because you want it to be hot, but you don't want it to be at a full rolling boil. Okay, as you can see, my wax is starting to melt. I like to stir it with a silicone spatula as it melts, and this helps with, the silicone helps because the wax doesn't stick as easy, and any scent that we add later on will not be absorbed by the silicone. Again, like everything else, this is a candle making spatula only now that I've used it for candle making. And as it's melting, at this point it's really too early to do it because it's not all the way melted, but you do want to keep an eye on it and use some type of thermometer. You can use, let me get the candy thermometer if I can find it as an example. Oh well. You can use a regular candy thermometer, which I can't find ours right now because that's not what I use. I have this fancy infrared one I use for soap making. So this one you just like shoot in there and the light will tell you how hot it is. So with my kind of wax I'm using, and most waxes really, you don't ever want to go over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So I just kind of keep an eye on it as it's melting. And while it's melting, it's a really good idea to start adding in your intention and your energy and really visualize what you want these wax melts to have the energy of. And then once it's time, I will come back and we can add the color and the scent. The next step is to add the fragrance. I need to weigh mine out. So the fragrance I chose for this is called Hot Apple Cider. It smells like apples, nutmeg, ginger, cinnamon, and vanilla. So each type of wax is going to have a different percentage of fragrance that it can handle. So you'll have to check with the manufacturer for the exact type of wax you're using for your wax melts. Mine is good at about 10%, so that's what I'm going to use. This is just a little 50 milliliter beaker. I've put it on my scale and I teared it out, and then I'm going to use one of these little pipettes to help measure. So I need about 22 grams, and grams is easier, so I'm going to start with pouring it because like that's 10. It'll take forever if I do it just by, that's 19. So it's going to take way too long because I can only do like 2 grams at a time if I fill this thing up like that. So there's 19, there goes 21, and 22, perfect. Okay, so there it is all measured out. As you can see, my candle wax is totally melted and I've now taken it off the heat. I'm going to take the temperature again, 192 Fahrenheit. So at about 190, but definitely under 200, is when you're going to want to add your fragrance. So fragrances come in different colors. For example, this one is more of a golden color. This other fragrance I'm using later on is much more clear. It's got some color to it, but it's much clearer. Whereas this fragrance is very orange, clearly very orange. So you want to add the fragrance before the color because of how it will affect the end color. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Try to get all those drips out of there. And then you're going to want to stir in your fragrance oil slowly so as not to create any bubbles or anything. But you want to stir it slowly and for a solid 2 minutes. This is an easy step to seem like you can skip, but if you don't fully incorporate the fragrance oil good into the wax, the molecules won't bind together and it'll seem like it's fine, but then when you pour it and it starts hardening, all the fragrance will just float to the top and they won't mix and your wax melts will be ruined. So stir this good and I'll come back once I have and we can start working on color and everything. Okay, so mine's already a little bit orange because I did add those trial ones I put in there, those little trial wax melts. But then I have this wax melt. It's from a sampler pack, so there's not very much in here, but they're little, it's called melon orange, and they're just little dye flakes like this. So I'm going to put a few in here, and I'm not going to put a ton because I definitely don't want to overdo it. I can always, add more, but I can't take any out, of course. So I'm going to stir that in, and you can also use a liquid candle dye, and that, you can see it's already melting. That's pretty fun to watch. You can use a liquid candle dye that'll be like drops that you would add. Let me see. Oh, good. It's pretty much all combined. And so once it has melted or stirred in, I grabbed some wax paper. Hang on, sorry, I'm folding it. And to test the color, because when it's in here and it's all melted like this, it's always going to look darker. So I grab a little bit and drop it on a piece of wax paper like that. And then I just sit that aside and let it cool. And that'll show me more what the true color will be once these, go. and are fully hardened. I can already tell by looking at it that I need a little bit more of the color, even though it's not fully hardened yet. So I'm gonna add another flake, a couple tiny ones, and just stir that in, and we'll do another test and see how it turns out. Now I'm gonna do another tester. You can see the first tester is nice, but it's a little bit yellowy. Here's the second tester. Not much darker. So what I think I'm gonna do to darken it up just a tiny bit is I have a little bit of this called strawberry red, and I'm gonna add these flakes are bigger, so I'm gonna break off a tiny piece, literally really small, and add that in and see if that kind of darkens it a little bit. Because I don't want the pumpkins to look too yellowy. I do want them to be more orangey. Oh yeah, that's darkening it up some already, even though it was just a teeny tiny piece. When you're not working with very much wax like this, you definitely want to add it tiny piece at a time. And you can see my testers. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. They look a little bit more yellow on camera than they do in real life, but they're both still too yellow and not orangey enough for my liking. Okay, so this is almost good. Okay, let's try another tester. There's 1, 2, there's 3. You can already see that one's looking darker, but it hasn't cooled yet, so we'll have to see. Okay, that one looks much better to me. In the camera, they all still look a lot more a lot more yellow than they do in reality. But this one looks like a good pumpkin orange to me. It's still kind of light, but it's better than it was before. All right, so for the kind of wax I'm using, this specific wax, you're supposed to pour when the temperature is about 170. As you can see, 143, mine is way too cool because it took so long to add all that. So I'm gonna put it back on the stove for just a few seconds until it warms up a little bit. You don't wanna warm it up too much because then the scent will like evaporate off. So just warm it up just a little bit till it's at 170. All right, time to pour. My wax is at a good temperature. I've got my mold, the other one too that I'm using later, on a cookie sheet so that I can easily move them. And now it's time to pour. It's a little bit hard out of this pitcher. Okay, and I'm gonna come back with a pipette and get some in those little stem areas because I don't want to over pour and make it overflow. So here's how they turned out. It's time to unmold them. I already did this one. You can see they're really cute. That one got a little chip on it where it didn't come out of the mold properly. But just kind of stretch the mold apart and carefully pop them out. They look good. I like those. They smell really good too. I'm going to move on to the next one just so y'all can see the different molds. Okay, here's this one, the pumpkins. I already did this one, which the stem didn't really do, but there's that one. And this one I made a mess in some of them. And the stems don't really want to come out, it would seem. I've never used this one for wax before. I've only used it for soap embeds that you put on top of soap. That one, the stem, well, it came out, but then it came off in my hand. Okay, Ooh, this one's got the stem. The stems are so tiny on this and so thin, see? They're so tiny, it's really easy for them to just come right off. That one's got a nice stem. Okay. Let's see what these ones look like. All right, these ones I obviously made a huge mess, poured the wax all over the freaking place. So let's see. Hopefully, I think I'm gonna have to turn these upside down and, oh, look, these ones popped right out. Oh, so cute. I love how that looks. This one, I'll have to kind of break this off from around the edges. Carefully on the stem area. I'll use one of those little carving knives and like chip away at the wax so that it looks more shaped nicely. If I turn it upside down, yeah, these just like pop right out. Oh, they look so cute. I love these ones. These ones are a lot of fun. Here they are. They look really nice. So once unmolded, I recommend allowing at least 1 week for your wax melts to cure before using to really maximize the scent throw that they'll give off. You can make these in whatever scents and shapes and colors you'd like, so they could really make fun Yule gifts or for whatever holiday you celebrate. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked this video. If you make your own wax melts, I'd love to hear about it. I've got lots of helpful links below to help with your crafting your own wax melts, and some are affiliate links, and they'll be marked, and it would be really helpful if you would use those. Please subscribe to my channel and leave any comments or questions you have down below. See you next time. Bye!